I heard a crop duster. Check this out. I hope he doesn't wreck. Oh my gosh!
I feel the need for speed.
Hey, welcome back to ZK MasterTech. Today we're going to start the repairs on the S790 that I previously inspected. If you haven't seen that inspection video and want to know what's going on with this thing, I'll put a card up here where you guys can go check that video. And I got the combine in the shop and I just installed this Sloan Express wide body feed accelerator kit in it, and let me tell you what, that thing is a game changer. It is awesome. It wasn't that hard to install, and I think it's going to dramatically improve the feeding capability of this thing. It's going to evenly distribute the crop going into the rotor, which just has a tremendous amount of impact on the rest of the machine and how it threshes and cleans the rest of the crop. So I think you guys need to check that out. I'll put a card up here if you guys want to see how that install went. You can check that out if you want to learn more. But that project's done. So the next thing that I'm going to be going into is we're going to be replacing the main hydraulic pump for a PIP. It has a 45cc hydraulic pump in it. It's a variable displacement pump. Those pumps on Model 24 model combines and Model 25 S790 and 900 combines had some issues, and there's a PIP to replace the pump, and we're going from a 45cc to a 56cc pump. So I think I'm going to get that done first. We've got some belt alignment issues with the chopper and the discharge beater, mainly because the discharge beater isn't centered in the machine and it's throwing the belt alignment off on the left hand side. We've got an issue with the clean grain elevator belt, and I think it's got a bent pivot that the tensioner arm rides on. Hopefully replacing that will get that tensioner lined up properly so the belt isn't trying to run off one of the idlers. And we also have a pretty serious issue that we need to address, and that is that the cleaning shoe is biased to the right. So when I inspected this combine, the right rear sieve frame seal is super close to the side sheet, and it's rubbing so hard that it's actually getting into the rivets on the seal. So we need to figure out why the cleaning shoe, especially the sieve frame, is shifted over to the right hand side. We can't have that. So I'm going to show you guys what we got to do to fix that. And it should be a pretty interesting video. I'll see how much I can include in this video. There's a lot more other repairs that we need to do, but these are just some of the main things that we need to fix on it. So let's get into it. All right, well, I got the hydraulic oil reservoir drained. I used my Milwaukee transfer pump up top. I stuck the hose in it and sucked out as much as I could from the top, and then I stuck it on the drain, and then I turned it on and sucked as much as I could out of the drain. And that's about the amount that I got out of that. But I've already put the pig mat to good use because I've made a mess. I've already got all the hoses off the main hydraulic pump here. So right here's the main hydraulic pump. It splines into the hydrostatic pump right here. And yeah, I took some air pipes for the after treatment out of my way to get in there. I also took the real supply hose off because it was leaking right there anyway, but it was beneficial to get that out of my way. And I took all the hoses off the pump, and I took the little plastic outlet off right there. Took the output pressure line off as well. Now all I got left is the, it's kind of hard to see in here, I apologize about that, but now all I got left is the two mount bolts, and I'll hook a strap to that thing and hoist that pump out of there. Alright. Well, I know this is a little bit overkill for this situation, but you know, if you got it, might as well use it. Because I think the pump weighs, 40, 50 pounds, something like that. I could wrestle it out, but no. Gotta use my toys. I dropped it right where I want it. It's a little stubborn. Alright. Thanks, Mason, for the pig mat. Would you look at that? Alright, watch yourself. Watch yourself. I'm dripping, Mason. Dripping. See?
Yep, I see it.
I'm dripping worse than that pump was dripping.
It is a little
Warm.
Kind of hot in these rhinos.
Alright. So here I got our old 45cc pump. Supposedly there's been some issues with that pump, so they decided that there'd be a mandatory PIP that we update it to this 56cc pump. And you can tell there's a size difference between the two. And the layout's pretty similar. I also have to replace the pressure line. It comes with a new pressure line for it, and it also has a new inlet to go on there. The original one was plastic. This one's aluminum. So I transferred the fittings over that I needed to, put new O-rings on them, and now I guess I'm gonna hoist that thing in the hole. I went ahead and replaced the O-ring. There's an O-ring that goes in the hydrostatic pump on the inside, and then this slips into that O-ring right here. So don't have to put an O-ring on the pump. There's an O-ring in the hydrostatic pump that slips into. So I'm gonna hook the strap up to that thing and get her hoisted up in there and set in the hole. Man, that thing just plopped in the hole. I guided it in with the strap and it splined and went almost all the way in. I just had to come down here and wiggle it a little bit and it just boop. And I put the bolts in, so I'll torque those to 66 foot-pounds, and then I'll get get the outlet put on there. I got to replace this pressure line right here. It just goes down to the bottom of that block right there, so it's not too long. And I got to hook up the load sense hose right here to the compensation valve. The pressure valve sits on the bottom of the pump. Get the outlet on, get that clamped on, and then get our case drain return hooked up and fill this thing back up with oil and get my mess cleaned up, and I'll be done. All right, I got everything hooked up and all in place. Man, see, there's a lot of stuff in your way to get in there, but I probably took a few extra steps, but it was nice getting that stuff out of my way. Plus I had some leaks on the reservoir that I had to fix as well. So I got all the clamps tightened up that were leaking on the reservoir. Got a new pressure line right here. Goes down like this onto the primary valve block right there. So now all I got to do is fill it up with oil and use the Milwaukee transfer pump to put that oil back in. Now I'm going to change the main hydraulic filter. These have these springs that go on top of them. Done. All right, it's time to fire this bad boy up and see if I got hydraulics. See if the feeder house goes up. Oh yeah. Nice. Steering. Wow. Got quite a bit more steering power. I'm watching the rear view mirror where my tires are. Before, I was trying to get the wheels turned to get more room to get into that pump, and the steering was super hard. I couldn't steer it without the combine moving a little bit. And now I can move the wheels wherever I want to. So, hey, that's an upgrade they didn't say was going to happen. A little more oomph on the 56 cc pump. I like it. No leaks, Mason? No leaks? Just my residual oil mess. It's got more steering power. I could actually move the wheels without having to move the combine. Before I couldn't hardly steer these wheels with it sitting still on the concrete. And now it does. It's a perk. All right, well, I was gonna work on the cleaning chute and figure out why the cleaning chute's biased to the right, but Mason decided he needed to level the concave. I got Mason here, he's working with me. He's handling all the non-warranty items, you know. What have you done so far?
I have replaced the feeder house drive chain and guide.
Yeah.
And then the gear oil in the final drives.
And the mid-floor wear strips in the feeder house?
Do that. Forgot about those.
Yeah. So you have leveled a concave before, but
it's been a while.
You haven't done one with ZK though.
Correct. I'm not.
Yeah. So I'm gonna show you the ZK way, but we're gonna use the shop dog to turn the rotor instead of having to take any separator grates out to where we got to turn it by hand. We're gonna do it the easy way.
I like that.
Yeah, me too. So we dropped the concave down. We take the bolts off this harness to get it out of our way, drop it down to where we can get the lock nuts loosened and backed off, and then we back the stop bolts up, and then that allows us to raise up all the way to where we're not touching the stops anymore. And then I made sure that this worm gear here on this sector gear is bottomed out to where it can't go any further. You want to make sure that that's bottomed out, so that's technically 0, but the concave still reads 3 because it needs recalibrated. So on this shaft right here that rotates, we have a position sensor on the end of this shaft. So we need to give it a new 0, but we need to mechanically level it first to actual 0, and then we recalibrate it. It goes up and down. It figures out the voltage when it's all the way up and all the way down. So it has a new 0 point when we're all the way up, right? So now the way we're going to do this is we're going to raise the front up while the rotor's spinning until it ticks the concave. And then we're going to back out 1 turn. And then we're going to come back here and we're going to raise it up till it ticks and back off 1 turn.
Yep.
If this thing was way out of whack, we might back it off 3 turns and then go 3 turns and then come back, raise it up till it ticks, and back it off 1 turn and then back off 1 turn. So technically when the rotor is and the concave is level, you should be 1 nut turn from ticking on the front and the back. That is level. Alrighty? Alright, so we got the front raised up, and you can hear it ticking right there. right there, right? So now you're gonna back off that nut one turn. Here, mark it with a Sharpie. Yep. Mark it with a Sharpie so you know you went exactly one turn. You had to go up quite a ways, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
I mean, wow. It was way off.
Yeah.
Okay, the nut's backed off one turn. Now we shouldn't hear the rotor tick anymore. I don't hear nothing. Okay, so now you're gonna do the same here. You're gonna raise that up until it ticks and back off one turn. Okay, so we rose up till it ticks. Now mark it and back off one turn. Okay, so feel the tension on your rods. That one's loose, that one's tight. Where's all our weight? On the front. Okay, so what I like to do is I want to verify again. So we're going to spin it and we're going to turn that one tight one turn and see if it ticks during one turn. You know, if we turn it half turn, it starts ticking, you know, and we need to back off one turn from that point. And then we'll do the same on the back. And then we'll see where the tension of our rods is, and we want to put equal tension on the rods. Okay, so we'll tighten the one that's looser, well, just a little bit, right? All right, so back, raise that front one. Since we had to move so much, this thing was so far off, we had to move quite a bit. I want to double check. Ticking? Did you make it a full turn? No? All right, so now put a different mark on it to where you can recognize it. Now go a full turn from that mark. All right, now do that on the back. We're gonna go up one turn. Right there?
Yep, that's one turn.
And it made it one turn?
Yep.
Okay. So now back it off one turn. Now we're going to verify it doesn't tick. I don't hear nothing. Check the tension on your rods. Really tight, really loose. All right. So now we're gonna tighten the one that's loose just a little bit, just to where you've got equal tension on your rods. Because we're not technically lifting it up at that point, but we want equal tension on those rods, and that's gonna help eliminate vibrating. You know, if we got just all the weight on one rod, that concave is gonna vibrate really bad, and that's what causes those Z-bars to crack and those gussets to break. Okay. So you're just going to tighten, then you're going to feel. Like I said, we're just taking all the slack out. You got all the slack?
Yep.
Equal tension. All right. Now you're going to run your stops down to where they're touching the Z-bar. And then, since those bolts were painted, we'll be able to see exactly how far off of zero this thing was from factory. So when these things come to our dealership, they actually have a tag on them. Does it still have the tag up top that says leveled? It's like a little dog tag kind of thing. Is that on there? On the front one? Is it on the top? Is there a tag on it? Uh-oh. Usually there's a tag and it says leveled, but there's no way after 300 hours that we have worn that much. It had to have been off from factory. So let's run those stops down. We'll just see how far off it was. So where there's not green paint, that's how far up we had to go on the front. But look at the back. Look how far up we had to go from there. Goodness gracious. Here, measure how many millimeters that is on the back. Measure where the green paint isn't. So the 2 would be 20 millimeters.
So it's about 15.
15 millimeters? Wow. What's the front?
About 10.
About 10 millimeters. Okay. So let's talk about this, Mason. So this is the most important adjustment on the entire machine, okay? Because let's say our corn cob without any corn on it, let's say on average around these parts, it's about 30 millimeters. Well, we want the threshing clearance to be about the thickness of our cob, because we want to thresh all the corn off the cob, but we don't want to crush the cob and break it into pieces. We want the cob to stay whole, right? Well, 15 millimeters is half of our cob width. You know, so if we're not getting this right, it's going to mess up the whole entire rest of the machine, right? If we're not getting all the threshing done correctly here, then we have to make up for it, you know, in the separation here with our rotor speed, you know, our cleaning fan, and you know, we're not getting all the corn off the cob. Basically, if we're not getting it all off the cob by this point right here, most of it's just going out the back, right? So that's why that is such an important adjustment. And just because the combine's new, this is a model 24 with 311 engine, like 211 separator hours. And you're telling me the concave's off by 15 millimeters on the back, 10 on the front? That's not right. Like, it needs to be 0, right? So if you do get a new combine, always check this concave leveling and then recalibrate it, because this is going to make a massive improvement in this machine. Plus, we got the new feed accelerator in there. Now we have a level concave. This machine's going to run way better just on those two things alone. Okay, so now I'm going to recalibrate it. But first thing we want to do is, once you get it set, you want to just double check that we got no ticking. No ticking. Our stops are set. So now what I'm going to do, Mason, is I'm going to drop that concave down, and then you're going to run that first nut on the bottom all the way up to jam it. And then you know, make sure your top and bottom nut are tight, and then you're going to jam the jam nuts into it, okay? And then I will recalibrate it. But I'll drop it down so they're easy to access. All right, Mason's got everything all tightened up, so I'm going to calibrate the threshing clearance here. I missed it, it's right here. All right, threshing clearance calibration. And we're going to calibrate it. Start. There we go. It's going to raise and lower that concave. It's going to move that potentiometer on that Z-bar, and then it's going to know what voltage is all the way up and what voltage is all the way down. Okay, so that took a couple minutes. All right, now we're going to check it. We're going to push our threshing clearance button. Let's go to this page and make sure it'll open. I'll get it open a little bit now. I just want to make sure that it goes back to 0. Before, it would stop at 3. Zero. Perfect. All right. After calibrating it, you want to make sure that your worm gear is bottomed out right here. What I mean is right here should hit the gear, right? So we're bottomed out there, and then we want our stops to be touching. So if you really, I think the best way to do it is to calibrate it with the stops up. So whenever it does the calibration, it's stopping here instead of hitting the stops. And then once it's calibrated, set up at 0, then you can drop your stops down, and then it'll be perfect. Because if you do the calibration and you hit the stop before it hits here, once it gets calibrated in a new 0 position, you can't go any further. So you wouldn't be able to bottom this gear out unless you manually took this apart and rotated it. But the only thing you can do is recalibrate it with the stops up to where it would bottom out here, and then you'd have to redo it. So just go ahead and do the calibration with the stops up to where it bottoms out there, and then you should be good. But that just looks so much better now. All right, now I can look into the cleaning shoe issue. So I use the shop dog to turn the cleaning shoe over to mid-stroke. So I got the square hole sitting at 12 o'clock, and the swing arms are in the center mid-stroke section there. So what I wanted to show you was, check out the gap I have on my lower rear sieve arm here. See that? I can stick my finger in it. Okay, let's go to the other side. Look at this. Uh-oh. You can see where it's starting to rub the rivets. So it's definitely over to the right-hand side. So I got to thinking. I've been thinking about this for a couple weeks now. Because normally, in order to fix this problem, you know, we could, the drive shaft that runs through there, we could have the depth of the shaft. So whether it's too far left or too far right, you know, that could affect the position because it's going to change where these main pitman arms are. So you have that adjustment that you can make, but then there's also enough room when you loosen up the bearing flanges that you can cock the shaft this way to fix the problem. But I was thinking, I was like, okay, well, if the shoe drive shaft and the pitman arms, if they are affecting where these frames are inside the machine, what if we just disconnect them, right? So if I disconnected these pitman arms from here, so there was nothing manipulating the swing arms, where will this be sitting, right? So that would eliminate the actual shoe drive system, you know, incorrectly positioning my cleaning shoe, right? If I disconnect the pitman arms, then they're not manipulating my swing arms and changing where my frames are inside the machine. So I was thinking I'd disconnect those, and then we'll just see where the frames are sitting in the machine. You know, will I be able to push that side in? So if I take those arms off and this thing's still stiff right here and I can't push it in, I have no wiggle room, then the issue's got to be inside with the frames itself. So that's what I think I'm going to try. I'm going to try something new here and see if that works out for me. It either will or won't. I got to pretty much take that stuff apart anyway if I was going to change where the shaft was in the machine. So I'm going to go ahead and get that stuff disconnected. I heard a crop duster. Check this out. Holy moly. Here he comes again. man. Hope he doesn't wreck. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Holy cow, I had to go outside and see what the heck was going on. I mean, it sounded like he was going to hit the building. I mean, he was just barely over the top of the building. Barely over the top of those combines coming in. Man, that was pretty cool. That guy is good. And then when he was coming from the west, coming back towards the training center, he was so low, like the plane disappeared, and then all of a sudden at the last second he just dove up and went right over the training center. It from my perspective looked like he was just gonna dive crash straight into the training center. Man, so never a dull moment around here. That was pretty cool. I've never had one crop duster like that close to everything at the dealership here, but man, that guy's got some balls. So I got the pitman arms off, and first red flag, as you can see, that they're not sitting square in the flanges. See that? And that's been that way since factory. Look at the paint line, right? If that was sitting in there, right, we wouldn't have paint on that edge when it was painted. Yeah, look at that. So those aren't sitting center, and when I did take them apart, these arms were being torqued by those, so I don't think that this shaft depth is set correctly. But now we have the pitman arms off of both sides, so technically the chaffer and the sieve frame is just hanging on the swing arms in the machine. The only other thing manipulating where those frames are is just the swing arms themselves, right? But look, it's still super tight right here, right? And I could pry the other side and I could wiggle it back, but it seems like the swing arms just want to force it back where it's at. Really what I need to do at this point is pull the chaffer frame so we can just look at the sieve frame alone, how it's sitting in there, and then we'll loosen up the bolts on the swing arms and just see what it does then. So there could be multiple things wrong. We could have a problem with the frames themselves. It could be the swing arms manipulating where that frame is sitting, or it could also be the side sheets, you know, might not be perfectly straight, because these side sheets aren't super thick and they can bend and bow. And back here where the chaffer sits, we actually have big gaps. I can stick my finger through the seal, but I can do it on both sides. But if you pry out on this swing arm, this sheet of metal right here will bow in and out. So this is not super duper sturdy right here. So I don't know if some of this is just that this side sheet is bubbled out on both sides, but I'm not as concerned about this because, you know, we're not rubbing metal on metal, you know, right here. We're just, the seals are just barely touching the side, so I'm not as concerned about that as I am about this. This is just going to cause damage, right? It's gonna cause side sheet damage and sieve frame damage. So what I think I'm going to do is we're going to pull the Powercast tailboard off. We're going to pull the chopper off, and then I'm going to pull the return pan, because it's a lot easier to get that chaffer frame out with that return pan out. And then we're going to pull the chaffer frame, and then we're going to see how that sieve frame's sitting in there. We'll loosen the bolts up on the swing arms and just see how it fits in there hanging on loose bolts. All right, well, I'm back to work. I actually took a 4-day weekend. Took my wife and kids to Indianapolis for a nice 4-day weekend. We met up with some other friends there, had a good time, and I actually drove my new truck over there. I'd got a 2024 GMC Sierra AT4. It's dynamic blue metallic. It's a beautiful color. It's got the 3-liter Duramax in it. Drove it 450 miles and it averaged 26 miles a gallon. And I was setting the cruise at 80 and just sending that thing. I mean, I was running the truck hard. I wasn't like trying to save fuel. But like if I short trip it and do like a half an hour run at like 60 mile an hour, that thing will get like 29.5 miles per gallon. It's just insane, the fuel mileage on that truck. And it's got 500 foot-pounds of torque. It's got plenty of power. Really love that truck. It is really nice. So got back, and man, it's a lot hotter here in Illinois. Today we're supposed to have heat indexes of 115 degrees. That's just disgusting. Oh, the crop duster's back. I heard it. Did you guys hear it? Maybe I'll get a private air show today. Anyway, I'm back, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull the PowerCast tailboard off and the chopper off so we can start pulling the components of the cleaning shoe out so we can figure out what the heck's going on with this thing. So I've got all the hydraulic hoses disconnected from the tailboard. Now I just got to pull it off with a forklift. So let's get into it. Now it's time for the chopper to go bye-bye. Now I'm going to pull off the Sloan Express trash tube right here and this door right here and pull this wiring harness through, remove the cob deflector door, you know, get this whole section out of our way. Look at all the room for activities. Got the chaffer tailboard all stripped, all the loss monitors and wiring and everything off of it. All right, time to pull a chaffer element. Grab a little handle. Go on the side of it. Just kind of work it out. Just like that. Go your way. Time to pull the sieve element. There you go. Lift up. There you go. Got all the elements out. Now I'm going to be removing this return pan right here, because the chaffer frames on these newer combines, this pre-cleaner up here with those fins, yeah, you can't remove that while it's in the machine. And you can get this chaffer frame out without removing that return pan, but those fins hit the return pan, and then you can't get the chaffer frame out of the sieve frame seals good enough, and you'll end up ripping those seals. I've seen it done many times, so I just go ahead and remove that return pan just so I can get the chaffer frame in nice and easy without damaging any seals on the sieve frame. And I built this little wood jig to go on the end of my boom. It's lightweight and it works perfectly to cradle that return pan, and I just got a real long boom here on the forklift, and that's what I use to pull that return pan out instead of having to tie up, 2 or 3 guys to try to wrestle that thing out of there. I can pretty much do it by myself. I got all the swing arms disconnected from the chaffer frame, and I got my little jig that I made bolted in here. And I don't know why, but I use these brackets for the extended chaffers. This didn't have an extended chaffer from factory, but the bolt holes are still there. But for whatever reason on this newer combine, the bolt hole pattern was a little wider, so I had to egg out the holes with a burr bit to get those bolts to fit in there. But this point right here is almost the perfect center of gravity to pick up these chaffer frames, so I just stick my boom right in between those two little pieces right there, and I got a little keyway that I welded on the boom that kind of hooks onto it, and I just put a little ratchet strap back from the boom to keep it from sliding off, and these usually just slide right on out. Came out of there a little crooked, but not bad. Alright, with the chaffer frame removed, all we can see now is the sieve frame. And I got all the bolts loosened up on the sieve frame, so we can move this thing all around in here. Okay. Well, what I did notice when I first pulled the chaffer frame out before I loosened the bolts on the swing arms for the sieve is removing the chaffer frame did help it a little bit. It loosened up on this side just a little bit. So how that chaffer frame was sitting in here has to sit right into these seals, and I think it was pushing it a little bit. So I started doing some checking, and I took a tape measure and I measured from that corner to here and that corner to here. And this frame is not square, so it's about a 1/4 inch off square, because we're 93 1/4 over here and we're only 93 here. So this frame isn't sitting square. It's going to throw everything off, right? So the chaffer frame is not going to sit in it correctly. If the chaffer frame is dead square, which it's really hard to check this new chaffer frame on the top of it because of those fins and everything. I can't really get a tape measure across it. But this one I can easily check it diagonally. And if this is not square and that chaffer frame is, it could be allowing it to push to this side. Okay? And I think once we'll pull the sieve frame out, and I'm probably just going to order new sieve frame side kits, these frame rail kits right here, because it's a lot of work to get in here and get this done. And the combine's under warranty, and these frame rails and everything should be set square. So if I'm going to yank this whole entire frame out and take these frames all loose, we might as well have a new frame kit sitting there to put on, and then we'll put it all together and make sure everything is all square. Okay, this thing needs to be perfect, and there isn't really a whole lot of side to side room, right? There's not a lot of wiggle room, I should say, right? So I mean, I'm talking like 1/4 inch wiggle room between the side sheet and the seals back and forth. There's not a whole lot, so it doesn't take a lot of misalignment for it to rub the rivets on that cup seal like it's doing. Okay, so there's the first issue right there. So I'm giving you guys the game plan of what we're going to do. Okay, so I'm going to be yanking this sieve frame out, ordering new side sheets, and of course we'll put new swing arms and hardware on it too, because this thing's been running all out of whack. This shaft up here is not centered in the machine. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Alright, so our shoe drive shaft right here, so this is what's turning our pitman arms and pitman bearings and making the chaffer and sieve frame go back and forth, right? Well, this has to be set at a correct depth, you know, because there's actually a taper where those cams will actually stop. So the centering of this shaft is really important. And from the lock collar face to the end of the shaft, we're on the right hand side, we're supposed to be 125 millimeters or 4.9 inches. This one's currently sitting at about 121. So we are 4 millimeters too far that way. And that explains why those pitman arms, the pitman bearings, were cocked in the flanges, because we were shoved over that way too much. So we'll need to correct that as well. And it can be really hard to get these shafts to move. You know, I'll take the lock collar off and try to clean the shaft up, and we'll try to get them to move, because the bearings feel perfectly fine. They're not loose, or they don't have any weird sounds. You know, they feel great. So I'm going to try to save on the bearings, because, you know, they don't have that many hours on them. They're just fine. So the problem is that the shaft was just not set in there correctly. So there's the second problem. Of course, we're going to rebuild those pitman arms and bearings, because that got all messed up. So we'll get those new on there as well. We'll get new swing arms, new hardware, and we'll get the frame, the sieve frame, squared up. And I'll make sure that the chaffer frame is squared up to the best of my ability before we put it all in there. And then we'll get the frames all set in, new hardware installed, have it loosely installed, get it set to mid-stroke, and then I'll run my torquing procedure, my sequence that I do. And we'll torque everything to spec with Loctite and all the good stuff, just like I've shown you before. And then we'll see where this seal's riding after that. And I think when I'm building that sieve frame, I'm going to try to narrow it up as much as possible, because I want to try to get a little bit more wiggle room inside of there, since there's really not a whole lot. There's, like I said, maybe a 1/4 inch, you know, side to side, either direction. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room there. So I want to try to get those side sheets pressed in as tight as we possibly can, but still maintain the squareness of the frame. Oh, man, I tell you what, it is hotter than jumping rope in the attic while it's on fire. I mean, I just temped the concrete earlier where I was standing. The concrete's 100 degrees. Feels like temp's 112 right now, and it's just miserable in here. I'm just dripping wet. Anyway, I'm pushing through. I'm powering through just for you guys. So I'll get all the parts ordered and everything, but I just wanted to clear things up, because I know this is a common problem where I've gotten a lot of questions on this issue. People talking about, you know, cleaning shoe rubbing on one side or the other. Now, just because what I found on this one caused the issue with the sieve frame rubbing, doesn't mean that that's the exact same issue on your combine, right? There's a lot of things that it can be, right? That shoe drive shaft that I was just talking about, you know, it could be tweaked this way and that way in order to get those frames throwing straight. The depth could be wrong, but remember, if the depth is wrong, one thing to look out for is crooked bearings in your flanges. So that's one thing to really look out for there. Also, you could have frames that are out of square. Obviously, it's not super easy to check that. You ain't checking the sieve frame without pulling the chaffer frame out and getting it out of your way, all right? These newer chaffer frames aren't super easy to check if they're square or not. I think I'm going to flip it upside down and try to check it that way. Might be a little easier to measure it more accurately. And also, I've actually seen where you have a gap on one side and grain is leaking out because the cup seal's not contacting. You know, if it's not an alignment issue with the shoe drive system, and if it's in the frame square, you can put shims behind the seals. They do offer like a 3mm and a 6mm shim, and you can shim those out to get those seals to actually contact the side sheet. Okay, and I've also seen a bunch of material get packed behind those cup seals, and it kind of pushes it towards the side sheet and makes it rub too. So in order to fix that, you just have to pull the sieve frame, drill those rivets out, pull the cup off, clean it up, and put a new cup seal on, and then you should be good to go. I messed with a combine for a long time once, and that's all the problem was. I eventually just pulled the sieve frame, and I noticed that once I got the frame out, I could see the whole entire seal, and that it was bulged out because there was just a bunch of crop material wedged in behind it. So keep that in mind as well. Yeah, so I tried to cover as many of the different factors that could happen that could cause this problem for you guys, so you know what to look out for. But on this particular case, it was kind of interesting. I haven't actually had a combine with this low hours not be set this far off, right? I haven't had a frame out of square like that, and the depth being wrong, you know, right from factory. So keep in mind, this is not a super common issue that I see. I've seen it with other combines that have been taken apart by someone and then not be put together right, and then I see those issues. I've seen that before, but I've never seen one come from factory like this. So just keep that in mind. This is not a super common thing. All right, well, that's going to do it for this video. I'm going to get parts ordered for this combine, so the next time you see me, we're going to be diving into the repairs more on this S790. Like this video, comment below, let me know how I'm doing. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It really helps me out. And until next time, keep that green iron moving.